Trump just fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and I don't really consider myself to be a dramatic person, certainly never using this platform to be dramatic, but y'all, this has the potential to be catastrophic. The Bureau of Labor Statistics produces thousands of statistics on the health of the US labor market, and if they're not reliable, we're flying blind. And the most worrying part of what happened today is that when he fired the commissioner, he basically slandered her and accused her of politically manipulating the data. What happens next determines just how bad the fallout from this is. So I'm going to give you some context about what happened and try to, I guess, get you to care or pay attention or call someone, because this is bad. So it's Friday, August 1st. It's the first Friday of the month. The Bureau of Labor Statistics for decades now uses the first Friday of the month to release the Employment Situation Summary, aka the jobs report. Amongst the hundreds and hundreds of pieces of data that we got this morning, there are two headline numbers: the unemployment rate and the number of jobs added in the economy. Well, this month's report about July that came out this morning, it was bad. I mean, there is no other way to paint this. This was a bad report, and it showed a very weak labor market, a dangerously weak labor market. And it showed it on a couple fronts. The first was that the economy didn't add that many jobs, 78,000. That's a pretty low number. We try to hit around 150 to keep up with population growth. So it's not a good number. But the real concern was that the downward revisions from the prior months were over 250,000 fewer jobs were added than originally estimated by the Bureau. Now, this does take some nuance to understand, so I'm going to try to explain it as simply as possible. Statistics is hard, as you probably know from any class that you took on it. From the Bureau of Labor Statistics perspective, what makes it hard is that they need to be timely and accurate. We have to have information about how the labor market is doing. We can't fly blind and essentially let the labor market deteriorate or go into a bad recession without knowing what's happening. But the longer you wait to produce the estimate, the more accurate it will be. So there's basically two choices here. Come out with an early estimate that you know has to change, or wait 3 months for a solid estimate. The BLS splits the difference. They come out with an early estimate, and then as more data comes in, they revise it twice. The reason for the data quality improving is basically people return the survey. So if I send out 100,000 surveys, 100,000 to businesses and 100,000 to households, they're not all going to get it in on a week or within 2 weeks. They're going to take extra time. And so as more surveys roll in, the accuracy of the number improves. So the BLS basically gives us, every month gets 3 months of estimates, the initial and 2 revisions. Well, over the course of the decades and decades, probably longer than any of you have been alive, over the course of the decades and decades of the BLS producing 2 months of revisions, the revisions themselves are their own indicator, right? Before a recession, when the economy is looking bad, revisions tend to be large and negative. When the economy is good, revisions tend to be large and positive. They swing in both directions. They can be good or bad. They can be, sometimes we get big revisions because there was a hurricane in a major state that delayed the reporting of the data. It goes up and down all the time. We expect it to. That's how statistics and surveys work. But when the economy is going south, they tend to be negative, and they tend to be big negative numbers. And I remember the October 2008 jobs report as the economy is truly slipping into the financial crisis. It was this exact same type of report of it wasn't a good number, and it was met with massive downward revisions. So the labor market is weak. It's a lot weaker than we thought it was, and that is what we found out this morning. Well, the problem is that if it is weak, it's because of trade wars. I mean, essentially, Trump is tanking the economy through very ill-advised tariff policies, something that every economist, including myself, had warned was going to be the case. What's, I think, unfortunate from the numbers from Trump's perspective is that the U.S. economy was much stronger in January than it is now. We had higher retail spending, we had lower prices, we had stronger job growth, lower unemployment rates, and now all of it is going south. It's because of his policies. So when the report came out this morning, he waited about 5 hours, and then he fired the commissioner and said she was cooking the books for political reasons. That means that we are in a tenuous time for our economy when it is basically suffering under the weight of trade wars that are very ill timed, very ill executed, very ill designed, and seemingly have no purpose. At the same time that this is all starting to go south, you fire the head of Bureau of Labor Statistics for political reasons in a brazen retribution. He said, I fired her because she's not agreeing with me. If we lose the integrity of economic data at such a critical moment for the economy slipping into recession, we will be flying blind. We won't know how the labor market is doing, and we won't be able to respond when it actually does go south. I once had someone at the Bureau of Labor Statistics tell me, if you asked someone at the BLS, is the glass half empty or half full, they would respond, it is an 8-ounce glass with 4 ounces of liquid. And that's a common joke at the agency. It's actually on their website on the About Us page. Their job is that the data and the numbers have to come first. So what happens from here depends on who replaces the fired commissioner. Someone who is loyal to Trump or someone who is loyal to the data. This role, I mean, she was a career economist. She's worked for the Census Bureau her entire career. She knows US data backwards and front, and it's all she cares about. What is terrifying about this is if she is replaced by someone who is loyal to Trump over loyal to the data, we don't know what the data means. We can't trust it, and that means that policymakers are basically flying blind, pushing out the lie that whatever Trump says is true and the economy is as strong as he wants it to be, as opposed to responding to the needs of Americans because the data is telling us how it actually is. I don't know if anybody cares about this outside of the small world of economists who follow this, and I would assume that the Federal Reserve's got their hair on fire right now. They're so upset about this, but we're risking so much because if we don't know what's going on with you, if we don't know what's going on with the economy, we don't know what's going on with you. And if we don't know what's going on with you, we can't help. And if the economy tips into a recession 3 months before we catch it, it's just going to be worse. It's a lot to risk. And my hope is that there's so much pressure to keep this position loyal to the data that even though he's fired her, she's replaced by another career statistician. Because to be fair, she is a political appointee, and she was a Biden leftover political appointee. He's well within his rights to fire her. It's just that he did it on the day of a bad jobs report and said it was because the jobs report was bad and she's lying. Like, it's one thing if he was like, yeah, she worked for Biden, I don't like her, I'm going to fire her. That would be like less of a concern. It's within his rights. She's a political appointee. But the fact that he did it for quote unquote her messing with the data as opposed to him messing with the economy, that is the worry and concern. So everything depends on who she is replaced by, what type of political appointee comes in. And that is where Congress can exert so much pressure to make sure it is a person who's loyal to the data. The reason why I'm dramatic is because they have shown almost no spine up until this point. It's Republican controlled top to bottom, and they have appointed some truly horrendous people to very important positions whose only qualification is that they are loyal to Trump and not much else.